Hour number 3 of Overdrive on Getaway Friday, long weekend, Labor Day weekend. Jim, Tatti, Dave Feschuk with you. Hello to everybody now watching on TSN 2. We're going to deal with the U.S. Open. Mark Roe on site will be with us very shortly. He's just doing the history lesson, and it makes sense. The U.S. Open on hard court was on grass until 1974, clay, 75 to 77, and then the hard courts. And we're talking about Alcaraz, and just at the age of 20, to go head-to-head with Djokovic, and regardless of the surface, because usually there's a bit of a learning curve there at some point.
Right.
But he's got it all down at the age of 20.
Right. That's why he was not the favorite to win on the grass courts of Wimbledon this past Wimbledon, because he like most Spanish players, he favors the clay, and he grew up on clay, and usually it takes a while to figure out these other surfaces, right? And it's taken this guy like no time at all, it seems, to be able to adapt to whatever he's put on, and suddenly at age 20 he's vaulted himself into the conversation as the best guy going. Which
is kind of one of those sports study stories on greatness. And so when the next great individual comes, regardless of the sport, they're always a composite of what preceded them. So the learning curve that some of the all-time greats that have set standards had to go through, the next guy or girl doesn't seem to have to go through that.
Yeah, it's a good point. He's the evolution of all those players to some degree, because he's grown up watching all those guys, right, and understanding that as much as you start out on clay, you gotta be versatile. You have to understand the game on many different levels, because tennis is like, it's this year-round cycle where you have to go from different sport to different sport, essentially. Like, there are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences between these surfaces. So for this kid to be here at age 20 at the U.S. Open as the defending champion after just winning Wimbledon and beating Djokovic in that incredible match in Wimbledon, I mean, it is awfully impressive. And the thing about it is, Jim, I think it's a bit scary for tennis, because as much as when you had Federer and Nadal and Djokovic and Andy Murray going at it, like, there's nobody else in this age group really that looks as impressive as this guy.
Well, he's going to have to carry it all himself.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to complain about, but
well, yeah, it looks like I mean, look, these guys evolve and players emerge, and he's got a long way to go. He's only 20 years old, but right now it looks like he's so far ahead of whoever else is in his cohort that it could be awfully hard to stop this guy from winning a bunch of Grand Slams in very short order.
Well, let's bring in the expert, live from New York, or Flushing Meadow anyway. Mark Roe. Mr. Roe, how are you today, sir?
Easy on the expert there, Jimmy, but always great to be on a show with you two.
Our pleasure as well. You know that. So we're doing the Alcaraz sort of study, and I guess, maybe the ultimate question at this point would be, what gets in the way of he meeting Djokovic in the final?
The first person would be Jannik Sinner. I think that's the quarterfinal that everyone is pointing to, and it would be a rematch of last year's quarterfinal, which went to 5 sets and was probably the best match of the whole tournament. And those two have a bit of a rivalry going, and Sinner has been able to beat Alcaraz on a couple of occasions. That would be my instinct to say, if Alcaraz doesn't get to a final, it's either an injury or it's probably Jannik Sinner. But you're right. Everyone from day one, everyone had to win 7 or 6 matches to get to the final, but we're still talking about a Djokovic-Alcaraz rematch from Wimbledon and Cincinnati. And I was listening to you guys a little bit about, who can, from this age group, even be in the same category as Alcaraz, and there isn't. And all you have to do is look at Djokovic. And the one guy who maybe puts a little fear into his eyes is Carlos Alcaraz. I don't think there's anyone that Novak Djokovic really, if you get him in an honest moment, worries about on tour at this moment.
Well, watching Alcaraz last night, Mark, I mean, the thing that stands out to me is just the versatility of his game. And I'm not a tennis expert, but I love watching the big matches and in the big moments of the Grand Slams. And I was catching last night's U.S. Open late action. And the idea that this guy's got as much power as he's got, because he's wearing the sleeveless shirts and he's got the big guns, and he's kind of a young Nadal in that way, in terms of being a physical specimen that can really bomb it. But then for him to sort of drop these beautiful artistic drop shots that he throws in there so often. I mean, what player kind of comes to mind that had that combination of the power plus the real artistic side of the game that is just so next level?
It's probably Rafa, and it's unfair, comparable. I know it's another Spanish guy, and we'll immediately point to those two being very similar, though he's right-handed. But the sleeveless shirts don't help, or certainly help, I guess,
right.
when it comes to looking at him and thinking, yeah, he kind of does play a little bit like Rafa. But I remember 2 years ago when Felix beat Alcaraz in the quarterfinals here, and for most of that match, Felix was able to dictate the points, and Alcaraz was a bit on his heels. And at that time, he was young, he was a prodigy, and he also grew up on the clay, and everyone thought, okay, well, he'll certainly be a really good clay court player, but I don't know about on grass, and maybe we'll see on hard courts. And in a short amount of time, suddenly he can, as you point out, he can beat someone with his power, and he can beat someone with his speed around the court and his finesse, and he's got drop shots. And, as an opponent, you're thinking, like, what I don't know what's our game plan here, because if it's one thing, he'll counterpunch with it, and then if we try to slow things down, that he was born to do that. So right now, outside of Novak Djokovic, an injury is the only thing that's going to stop Carlos Alcaraz from winning a lot of Grand Slams right now when it comes to the tour. There's a lot of Americans here that hope that won't be the case, and they're all charging along, and that's a huge story here on the anniversary of Andy Roddick 20 years ago winning the U.S. Open. But man, it certainly looks like Alcaraz is just going to roll through the draw until he gets to a final.
Yeah, and just to continue the parade, I mean, we've all been around for a while. You see in all athletics that there's an individual that shows up, and sometimes you could look at that individual and go, well, this isn't going to last forever. But in this particular case, when you watch this guy play, you look at him and go, he's so far ahead of the curve at that age, and you can project endlessly with this guy. And obviously he's going to inherit a mantle that some really great guys, three of them to be specific, had, but he's right in there already.
Yeah, and again, like we've said that about players before. We said that about Juan Martín del Potro. We've said that about Matteo Berrettini. We've said that about Genie Bouchard. Like, at a certain age where they're playing so well, and you think, okay, this is going to be like at least 10 years of domination. And everyone, I guess, is kind of holding their breath that he doesn't fall in the trap of either injuries or inconsistency. But he just seems to be not only so incredibly talented, but he's willing to put in the work and be the hardest worker out there. And then he does it with a smile and has quickly become, in a short amount of time, one of the most popular players on the planet. And that's one of the reasons why everyone is pretty excited at the potential of an Alcaraz-Djokovic final, because of, you have the future of tennis who is already arrived, and you have Djokovic who is trying to match Margaret Court with his 24th major title.
Okay, so you talked about the big story about the Americans at the U.S. Open, Mark, and Canadians at the U.S. Open haven't been around for a few days. They've been long gone, and I'm wondering, like, it's kind of been an off year for the Grand Slam hopefuls on both sides of the draw, and the men's and the women's draws at these Grand Slams for Canada. When you kind of step back now, a few days after they're out of the final Grand Slam tournament of the year, what do you take away from this year when it comes to high-end Canadian tennis?
I agree with you 100%, and I said it the other day on our broadcast that this is the worst season result-wise that Canada has experienced in tennis in over 10 years. And a couple people pushed back, going, "Oh, that's not that bad." And you look at the results. And there's certain years where just Milos Raonic on his own accomplished more than the Canadians collectively did this year. Like, we had no one that went to a quarterfinal. Felix came the closest in the fourth round at the Australian Open, and Dennis at Wimbledon. And a knee injury got in the way of Dennis, and Felix wasn't able to beat Yuri Lehechka, who on paper he should have won. It has been certainly a season to forget. It seemed like anything that could go wrong did, whether it was injuries, whether it was just regressing. The top of the list is and the one that everyone here wants to talk about is Felix Auger-Aliassime, and just how disappointing he was this year after how he ended last year, winning those 3 consecutive tournaments, helping Canada win a Davis Cup. But that stretch probably cost him a lot this year, and he has started to admit that away from the cameras, that it was such a taxing time on his body that he was never able to recover, and then it just snowballed eventually into a knee injury that hurt him for a couple of months, and now he's finally healthy, but now the confidence is gone. And the game or the assessment on Felix has always been unbelievable talent, but where's his plan B? You know, if plan A is not working out, can he win ugly? And he, at times, hasn't been able to do that, even when things were going well, except it was maybe a quarterfinal or semifinal. Now he can't do it in the first or second round because he's lost confidence in his A game. That will come back. I can't sit here and say, don't worry, Australian Open, he's going to go on a long run. But he certainly needs to change something to get over that hump because he has such big expectations on him.
Yeah, it's kind of a year like none other because it happened to everybody. When you're at the U.S. Open, you easily recall 2019 and Bianca winning against Serena, and just as you watched her win, you realized that she outpowered Serena, which a few people could ever say. But you also realized the toll it took on her body, and she's been really hurt over the 4 years since. What's her outlook?
Well, first off, I would say it's even more than the 4 years. Like, we covered her as a junior, and she was injured as a junior. And there's 1 year where she probably should have won the Australian Open as a junior and then had a foot injury, and that cost her that tournament. You know, her forecast is unbelievable potential. Her ceiling is as high as just about anyone on tour. I really do. Like, I often would answer your question, Jim, and say she's got to get healthy and she's got to play and she's got to have some consistency. I don't know if she's capable of doing it. I think her career is going to be little segments of 4 or 5 months where you hope that she's healthy or close enough to 100%, and that's when she's going to have to, strike when the iron's hot and win a couple tournaments because history tells us another injury is around the corner. Like, she had a pretty bad ankle injury in Miami earlier this year, which I thought it was going to end her season, and she kind of miraculously came back, and now she's got a back injury, and that's not something that you can really screw around with. So you hope that you will see her again this year, but she's going to have to, find some sort of program that allows her to get at least a big chunk of the season where she can get her ranking up and go on a long run. Because everyone here says it. She's got the ability to do it. If there's a few players who talent-wise can beat Iga Swiatek, and that's one of them, but she's never in either the right frame of mind or doesn't have the kind of the track record, the recent track record at least, and she certainly doesn't have the health to be able to go toe-to-toe with the world's best at the moment.
So we saw Alcaraz win last night, Mark, and Djokovic will be up tonight in his third-round match. You look at this guy, obviously we know the career resume, and we know all the accomplishments that have come before this, but now at age 36, can you really chart a map of how much this guy has left? Is it possible to do that, or is that just kind of underselling, the greatness that's he's shown throughout the years?
Well, yeah, we're talking about Milos Raonic, this is probably it. His body, and again, he's always dealt with injuries, and Novak Djokovic has been able to be this, physical specimen, but he's 32, right? And Novak is 36, and who looks like the 32-year-old and who looks like the 36-year-old? And yeah, I at this point, you're talking about at least 2 or 3 more years where Djokovic is at the top of the tour and is the standard. And I guess Alcaraz is the standard as well with him. But I think we're approaching 40 when it comes to Djokovic maybe tailing off. And again, this is one of those sports where he could run into one injury and that's it. And like Roger Federer, the knee injury hit him. Right. And it didn't take long for him to suddenly be, a shell of himself. So no one is counting out Novak Djokovic to win this tournament, to win the Australian Open next year, to win them all next year. And why would you bet against him at this point? And he seems, which is remarkable, as motivated as ever, even though he has passed his rivals in majors. And I don't know how much he cares about the Margaret Court 24 majors between men and women in any era. But he definitely wants to win this U.S. Open, which he hasn't won since 2018. So maybe that's getting him going a little bit. But I certainly know that Alcaraz has gotten his gears going with the way that Wimbledon ended.
Mark, I always loved the U.S. Open because it's just so well positioned. All the slams are important and they have their own kind of feel. This one is well positioned. The PGA Tour has sort of messed around with their majors, but in tennis, this is the way to go out. In New York, it's like a late night party every night, isn't it? And I mean that in the sporting sense, not what you may do when the mic's off.
Well, Jim, I am here on business, as you know, and as you know,
yes.
I'm a professional.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
I'm not trying to suggest anything.
Maybe now I am. I'm a little defensive here. No honey deuces. No honey deuces right now. But anyway, you're right. It's in terms of the atmosphere, that's the first thing that players talk about is just the New York crowd is like none other, and it's loud. And from our broadcast location, I could have told you who was winning points in the Francis Tiafoe match that was happening way at the other end of the grounds because, of the crowd cheering for him. And same with Ben Shelton in his match against Aslan Karatsev. And it's a cool atmosphere, and they're breaking attendance records so far. Over 73,000 people were here on day one and on day three. And I didn't see the totals from yesterday, but it can't be much of a drop off. And I don't know if we're finally out of COVID and people want to do more things or what, but it's electric here. And I've been lucky to be here for some great events. The Bianca Andreescu Serena Williams match was as loud as I've ever heard a venue, and Serena in her retirement tour last year was very similar. So it's a lot of fun. And anyone that likes tennis or just likes sports in general, and if you have some time, come to New York at the end of the summer because it's a great way to enjoy the world's best on a stage like another.
Okay, so there was a player at the tournament this week who was after my own heart, Mark, because there was nothing I hate more in sports than people that play slowly, whether it be in golf or in tennis. And Coco Gauff, the great American player, called out an opponent and called out the umpire for not calling out her opponent for slow play. What did you make of that controversy?
Well, I think it was, to me, it really showed sort of the maturation of Coco Gauff, who is only 19, but she, burst onto the scene, at least in main draws back in 2019. And she was, a teenage prodigy winning junior titles at the age of 15 and stuff. But I thought she conducted herself really well. Like, obviously there was the emotion of it, but I don't think she was disrespectful, and she knew the rules, and she was right. And one of her new coaches, Brad Gilbert, who, we have on our air all the time, and he's an analyst for ESPN, backed her up on Twitter and said, I'm not one to be too opinionated here, but this is not, this is not what the rule is there for. And so I appreciated it, and I think that's what the sport needs, because you do have these 4 or 5 hour matches, and as much as we all love those storylines, I don't think it's good for the sport where matches are ending at 2:00 in the morning here in New York, and the building is, a quarter full because people need to go back home and they got to go to work the next day. So I liked it. I can't imagine what Laura Ziegman is like on a golf course, but I don't want to be in the grouping behind her.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The other one that caught my eye, kind of a quirky story that transfers to golf, actually, was Medvedev, Daniil Medvedev, complaining about the crowd sort of, moving around when he was serving. Not unlike the way you heard some of the players at the Tour Championship on the PGA Tour talking about how, there were members of the crowd maybe trying to throw them off when they were putting, and perhaps with betting implications on the line. What did you make of Medvedev's rant there, and how often do you see that, Mark, where the crowd actually, has an effect on the play?
Oh, all the time here, right? Especially if you're playing an American. Medvedev is his own case, and sometimes he's a head case.
Right.
But that's what we all kind of love about him sometimes, as long as he's not crossing the line. But like in 2019, he reached the final, and he won a match early on in the tournament, and he thanked the crowd for booing him throughout the match. And if it wasn't for them, he probably would have lost. And he was tennis Drago that year. He was public enemy number one, and he's earned some of those fans back. But I think that's just Medvedev, and it happens all the time where fans are moving around and they're pretty loud, and it's a New York crowd, and there's some beverages being consumed. But when you're bringing up the crowd, guys, I'm surprised you haven't asked me about the Court 17 and how players are talking about the marijuana that they're smelling out in the park on the other side of the grounds, because that's what all the news outlets here in New York are running with. Like the New York Post is going with it, and Inside Edition was here about that, and that's just, again, another element to playing in New York, I guess.
Well, Mark, we knew you would eventually bring that up. So,
of course,
has it had any effect on your work?
No, I'm straight as an arrow right now. I'm working hard here, Tatti. I can't establish enough. I am a professional.
Absolutely.
I've learned a lot from you, Jim.
Yes.
And of course, I know how you would work at the U.S. Open, so I can only hope to get to your level.
Oh, wow. I think I hit a nerve. Mark, my apologies. Thanks very much for your time. Enjoy your night.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks so much.
Mark Rowe reporting to us from the U.S. Open.
Well, he's apparently avoiding the effects of the secondhand smoke, which is quite prevalent, apparently.
Which would describe the summer in more ways than one, wouldn't it?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so I love the U.S. Open. It's just it's the grand stage, and as I say, all the slams have their element, that the reserve of Wimbledon and the U.S. Open, the sort of the openness of the U.S. Open.
Yes,
if that makes any sense. The New York feel of the U.S. Open is it's unparalleled. Really.
It really is. No, it's a special place to go if you ever get a chance. I mean, of the bucket list items to go see it live at least once in your life, like I would recommend it.
Absolutely. So, and a tough year for the Canadians. It's just after so much optimism that they would all have an issue, and that the Raonic comeback would actually sort of distract you from that is kind of odd too, isn't it?
It is odd, but it goes to show how it's like a gladiator academy trying to stay healthy in the tennis tour, right? Like it's just
that's grueling.
Survival of the fittest. And so much of the stuff, I know there's been some stuff about maybe the mental game of Felix, and does he have a plan B when plan A doesn't go well? But so much of it seems to me it's just about injuries, right? Just trying to stay healthy out there on this never-ending cycle of tournament after tournament after tournament without much of an off season, and it's not easy.
Sometimes we sort of make everything easy by talking about it. For me, tennis is the toughest of all of them.
Yeah.
Because you're there basically on your own. When you're playing singles, coaches in the crowd, he or she can't do certain things, although they try to get a way around that. But you are basically, you talked about the gladiator aspect of this. You're on your own.
Yeah.
In all of the sports, there's some sort of help there or conversation that can happen to sort of aid you at a moment when you need it. But when you're playing tennis, that's it.
You're right. No, it's so true. And it's also like, when you think about how tough it is to break into that sport, right? Like there's not that much money, if you're not in the elite of the elite, right? Like the top 150, like the top 40, you're making good money. Obviously, the top few are making mega millions. But it costs so much money to travel with the proper team, right? Like if you need a physiotherapist, or you need a chiro guy, or you need a sports science guy, a la Phil Kessel's favorite people. It's not easy to budget all that in to stay healthy on this worldwide tour. I think that's a big factor. Like, unless you're making the mega millions, you can't, how are you supposed to travel around with all those people? It's not, the answer is most of the players don't have that luxury. They've got to kind of take what they can get where they can get it. And it makes it even harder to kind of break into the top by staying healthy and having all those performance benefits that all the best players have.
Well, the U.S. Open wraps it up, so only not even halfway through at this particular point, but another week ahead of that. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the Labor Day CFL weekend. Milt Stiegel from the CFL and TSN panel will join us and you on Overdrive on TSN 2, TSN 1050, and the iHeartRadio app. Overdrive grinding on a Getaway Friday, starting the Labor Day weekend. Jim Tatti, Dave Feschuk with you. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. CFL this weekend, Saturday night, 7-4 BC at Montreal, 6-4 Sunday, which is the end of Sunday Night Football because the NFL launches.
You know why, yes.
Yeah. Winnipeg 9-2 at Saskatchewan 5-5, and then Monday, the classic, Toronto 8-1 at Hamilton 4-6, then Edmonton 2-9 at Calgary 3-8, which is kind of intriguing as well because the Elks have won their last two.
They're rolling.
I know.
Can't lose.
Break up the Elks.
Exactly. Love it. That's great.
Wicked stuff.
Great story.
And that Sunday night football story in the CFL is very intriguing, very successful, and part of the partnership with CBS Sports south of the border.
Yeah, great. Hey, man, I've been in the States during the summertime on multiple occasions. You walk into a sports bar, CFL games are on, man. People in the States have an insatiable appetite for football.
Sunday night, too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sunday night, I think my experience is almost any night, but you're right. Sunday night works, man. People are looking for stuff to watch, and people love football in the States.
Let's do a quick win and lose poll here. BC and Montreal. I kind of like Montreal.
Okay. I'm with you there.
Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. I kind of like Winnipeg.
I think Winnipeg's just too good right now.
Yeah. Toronto and Hamilton. I'm going to go with the Cats.
Knew you would.
Yeah.
I knew you would, but I'm going to go against you there. I think Chad Kelly gets the new deal. He's going to bring a new excitement, a new kind of swagger. Now that he's the highest paid player in the league, he's got 3 years security. This is a big moment for him, man, and I think he's going to deliver.
And we'll save the other one for later because I don't want to be rude. Anybody who's willing to join us on his day off is impressive. Milt Stegall from the CFL and TSN panel. Milt, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, and there are no days off. There are no days off.
Okay.
I was setting you up for that. I mean, I knew that, and you knew that. That's called a nice little setup segue. Let's talk about Chad Kelly. First of all, a 3-year extension for the Argos. I mean, this is great for the Double Blue and the entire CFL, isn't it?
Without a doubt. I think it's the most significant signing in the CFL for some time. You know, what he's done for this little short time in the CFL for the Argos, how you see more people interested in what's going on in Toronto and just what it means for the league. So I'm happy for him, and maybe he saw what happened to Nathan Rourke and said, well, maybe I don't need to go down there. Maybe I'll just make some good money up here. So it's good for everyone involved, and I'm happy and excited for his future.
Well, that's always the question, right, Milt? When a guy gets this good this soon and tears up the CFL the way Chad Kelly's tearing up the CFL, there's always that question: how long can you keep him? And I mean, he's obviously signaled that he has every intention of remaining in the CFL for the duration of this deal. But of course, the NFL always beckons. But what kind of makes the profile of Kelly in your mind more likely to stay here for the long haul?
I mean, let's be honest. It's about the money.
Yes,
it's about the money. And as you mentioned, if the NFL comes calling and they offer him a good enough signing bonus where he leaves, he's gone. I mean, that's the bottom line. We can talk about all the things he talked about, community, team, and all that, but at the end of the day, it's about who's going to give him the most money. And of course, he goes to the NFL and he can make some life-changing, creating generational wealth type money. So that's the bottom line. I mean, I love the fact that he says all the right things, and he loves his teammates. He loves his coaching staff. He loves being in the community. He loves the fact that he's not far from home. But at the end of the day, it's all about how much money is going to be put in his pocket, the bottom line. So that's the main factor in determining where he's actually going to play football.
I got a couple of questions on him. One is business and one is his ability. So let's go with the business one first, because Pinball admitted that there's a community element to this contract where, and I don't care what the dollar figures are, but there's a possibility for him to generate more income as he gets involved in some of these community initiatives. I mean, that really is the missing piece for the Argonauts, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. And once that happens, you get a figure like him out there in the public, really, showcasing that I am maybe the top player in this league, and this is something you guys need to be a part of. I mean, that could be the final piece to the puzzle where that organization just takes off. It would be nice to see that. Such a great stadium, such a great organization. Everyone knows how Mike Pinball Clemens is. Ryan Dinwiddie, upcoming super coach in this league, and now they have their quarterback of the future signed for the next 3 years. So if they could get out there and have him doing great things in community and turn over all the stones where individuals who really aren't into what the Argonauts are doing, and he could get 10, 20% of those individuals, that would mean a lot for the organization and even more for the CFL.
Now, let's talk about his ability. I mean, when you watch this guy play, and the sample size really is only this year, how good is he? What does he do that catches your eye? And how has he actually matured in the 9 games we're talking about?
Well, I mean, he just has it. And you can say all these things about he's had, great training. He just has it. He's just one of those individuals, they call them 2%ers, who, when they step on the field, they just know how to play football. His decision-making, his arm strength, his athleticism, he just has it. Of course, you have to fine-tune those things. You have to continue working on them. You have to do your film study. He does all that. But he just has that ability that, once he steps on the field, he has an opportunity to win each and every game. And not too many people have that. Most folks, including myself, we have to work and work and work. And he has to do that. But he has some natural ability that very few individuals have, and he takes full advantage of it. And as I mentioned before, I'm excited to see where that ceiling is, because I don't think he's reached it yet. I don't think he's reached that peak yet, because he hasn't played enough. And the more you play, the better you become. And I think he's going to go down as a great one as long as he can stay healthy and continue to thrive and do all the things he's been doing so far.
So, you talk about hasn't played enough, Milt. The Ticats could say the same thing about their quarterback in the rookie Taylor Powell, who's going to start his third straight game on Monday for the Ticats. I guess the local media in Hamilton has been trying to introduce him to the concept of the Labor Day Classic, and the young man's been saying, hey, it's just another game to me. I'm just trying to make my way in this league. But seems like a bit of a quarterback mismatch, and obviously between the 8-1 Argos and the 4-6 Ticats, seems like a bit of a on the field mismatch between these two teams. But what if you were sort of sketching the path to the Ticats winning the Labor Day Classic? How would Powell factor into your game plan?
Don't lose it. you see the way the Hamilton Ticats won it last week. It was on the back of James Butler. Of course, Powell threw some nice throws, but they relied on James Butler to carry them and that defense. So my advice to Powell is don't lose it. Don't go out there and try to go toe-to-toe with Chad Kelly, because you haven't shown that you can do that. Maybe that's in your future, but right now we don't need you to do that. Just don't go out there and put us in some bad positions, throw some interceptions, fumble the ball. If we're just punting the ball, we're giving the ball back to them, let's hope our defense can stop them. We can get the running game going. We can create some plays with our special teams, but that would be my advice to him. Don't try to make this a Hollywood ending. Yes, this is Labor Day. I like the fact that he said it's just another game. Of course it's not. This is a big game, that he'll see that with the atmosphere and everything that comes with it, but he has to try to stay as calm as possible and don't go out there and lose the game. Give your team every opportunity to go out there and win the game, and they have a shot at winning the game.
The added spice, of course, is the ex-Argos on the Ticats coaching staff. One of them, of course, the offensive coordinator now, Scott Milanovich. You could see the effect in the last game of his offense, couldn't you?
Oh, without a doubt. He understands that he's dealing with a young quarterback, and he doesn't want to put him in situations where he has to do too much, where he has to go out there and throw for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns for them to win the game. It was a controlled offense, some short passes, and, of course, James Butler doing a lot. And you hope that your defense is able to hold it down. So not saying anything bad about the former offensive coordinator Tommy Condell is great. I think he'll snatch up a job when the offseason comes about. But Milanovich in that game, he definitely made a difference, because their offense was totally different from what we've seen early on in the season. So he's going to have to come up with some more trickery. Some more concepts, because this Toronto Argonauts defense is good, and we know offensively they can score some points. So he's going to have to come up with some more tricks out of his bag for them to have opportunity to win this game.
Milt, if you're in a locker room in the CFL this time of year and you're talking to rookies about Labor Day Classics and what they mean in places like Hamilton and out in the Prairie, what do you tell young players about the significance of these moments in the season?
You tell them, I understand you're looking at this as another game, but it's a different atmosphere. It's like that. If you want to compare it to something in the States, it's like that state championship high school game. That's the type of atmosphere it is. It's different than what you'll go through during the season, and unless you make it to the Grey Cup. That was my experience in Saskatchewan. It was hyped, and the times we went in there, we were better than them. We allowed the fans to get into the game, and it felt like there were like 30 opponents on the team, and that's the approach you have to have. If you're Toronto, you can't let those Hamilton fans get into it. If you're Winnipeg, you can't let those Saskatchewan fans get into it, and Edmonton, you can't let the Calgary fans, because there's nothing else like it once those fans get involved and the players get hyped, regardless of how good the teams are at the time. You let those opposing fans get into those games, and it could be downhill. So you just allow them to understand that there's no pressure. Every single time you step on the field, you're expected to play well, and every single game is like the other. But this is a little bit different because of the atmosphere that's involved with these games.
Milt, of this 4-game Labor Day weekend card, is there a game you've got circled that maybe stands above the others, and what would it be?
Oh, it's without a doubt the Labor Day Classic in Regina. There's nothing else like it. I don't miss playing football, but I miss playing in that game and the atmosphere that comes with it. I would suggest that everyone experience that. It's nothing else like it. The Winnipeg fans, they come up the road 5-6 hours away. They get involved. The hype before the game. I mean, my last 7 or 8 years, we couldn't even stay in Winnipeg. We had to stay in Moose Jaw because the atmosphere was so crazy. So that Labor Day Classic in Regina, it's second only to the Grey Cup as far as the atmosphere and the hype that goes into it.
So, obviously, you look at the game that's going to be played down at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, Milt. It's the biggest point spread of the Labor Day weekend games. 8-point favorites. The Argos walk in there with their 8-1 record. What's the danger, though? Jim Tatti was sitting here earlier talking about how in this league it doesn't matter so much, how you start. 8-1's a great start, but really you're going to be judged by how you finish this season. If you're the Argos on the coaching staff, what's the danger, and how do you sort of guard against the danger of allowing this really great start to sort of get you complacent and think that you can just walk over a team like the Ticats?
Well, knowing Ryan Dinwiddie, and I know him pretty well, I played a couple of years with him, he's not going to allow that to happen. He's not going to allow that complacency to set in. He's going to make sure these guys are on their toes, make sure they continue playing the same way they've been playing. He's going to allow them to force them to understand that there are no more bye weeks. And if they want to get another bye week, they have to win the East going into the playoffs so they can get that rest. So I'm sure he's drilling that into them to let them understand that, yes, we are 8-1, but we can't allow this to go to our heads because we still have 9 games left. And during this 9-game stretch, there are no more weeks off. So we have to make sure that we take care of our business so we can have a week off going to the playoffs. So I know Ryan Dinwiddie very well. He's not going to allow that to happen. He's a nice guy. He allows these players to be comfortable, to have some freedom. But at the end of the day, he's hard-nosed, and he forces them to understand that I'm still the captain of this ship, and I'm going to make sure that you guys are doing what you need to do to make sure we go out there and continue winning games.
And the Argos have got that down with the 1-0 on a weekly basis. They've done a really nice job of that. Obviously, Winnipeg's been around, and they understand how to do that. How difficult is that to instill in a team so that you live in the moment and not get carried away with what could be?
It's not easy at all. It's not easy at all. And I've been on both sides where we didn't get complacent, and other times where we did. You start feeling yourself. You think you're walking on water. You think you're untouchable. You think all you got to do is step on the field and you win a game. And I'm sure BC thought that last week against Hamilton, and we see what happened with that. So you have to go out there and approach every single game, every single play like this is going to be the hardest play to be successful on. This is going to be the toughest team in the world to beat. And if you have that approach, and if you're the best team, you're going to win. But when you start thinking that you are the stuff that you can just step on the field and no one can guard me, no one can stop me, I can make every single tackle, I can make every single throw, that's when the problems come about. But as I alluded to earlier, Ryan Dinwiddie is not going to let that happen. If this team starts losing, it's not going to be because Ryan Dinwiddie let complacency set in. It's going to be because the teams that they played against were just better than that day. So it's going to be an exciting weekend. I'm looking forward to it. The panel's going to be in Hamilton. Of course, I'm going to be looking good as always, so I'm excited for this weekend. Absolutely.
You got the big suit out again, right?
I'm going to do a little something special. It's Labor Day, and they say Labor Day is the last week you can wear white, so I'm going to do a little something. So nice. Check me out on TV. I'm always going to be tight with it, but I'll have on something a little special this weekend.
We look forward to that. Milt, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me. You guys take care and have a good one.
You too. Milt Stegall, CFL and TSN panel, and he's got something lined up for Monday.
Oh, I like this. Yeah. Have to tune in for the Milt Stegall fashion show.
Yeah, I just I hope that he's got security staff there, and the suit maintains its color by the end of the game.
Yeah, the TSN on CFL studio crew is going to have like the red carpet, right? Just like they do in the NBA now, just like they do at the award shows. They go like walking into the studio could be a thing for these guys.
It could be, yes.
It should be.
Yeah,
if Milt's talking about something big here,
Yeah.
I want to see this drip, as they call it.
So they're in the far end, which, let me just get my directions straight. North end and northeast corner is where they are in that stadium. So we'll see.
I'm telling you, man, it could be a thing. Labor Day red carpet, CFL on TSN. Book it.
In the Hammer.
Love it.
Yeah, that's got potential.
With Hamilton fans pelting.
I mean, that could be
the
a show.
Studio crew with Tim Hortons coffee.
That could be a show in itself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the pregame show.
Could get wild.
Well, what do you mean could?
It will.
Yeah.
You'll be there.
That's absolutely, I have to witness this. Overdrive continues. Final segment coming up on TSN 2, TSN 1050 in the iHeartRadio app. Here we go. The weekend is here. Final segment on Overdrive for a Friday, a mail-it-in Friday. Jim Tatti and Dave Feschuk with the honors. And I was just talking to JP. I didn't sewer anybody on the show today, which has got to be some sort of a record for me.
What's going on with you?
I'm just in a good mood.
Too nice. The nice Jim Tatti.
The nice guy. Yeah, nice guy. Yes guy, no guy, nice guy.
There's no such thing. That's never, those three phrases have never been spoken together. Yes guy, no guy, nice guy.
Well,
it doesn't happen.
Labor Day weekend, one of my favorites, and getting set for the Classic.
Okay.
At Tim Hortons Field on Monday.
Softened you up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So I'm happy.
The A team's back on Tuesday. The fans of the show are going to be happy.
That's right. Yeah.
They'll be out of their hair.
That's right.
Real guys will be back in the seats.
Yeah, I had a sewer name there, and did you see how I checked that?
You tried. You were thinking about giving O-Dog, your old pal O-Dog, a shot.
I went like that. I said, don't say it.
Don't say it.
No, God.
Yeah, Tats, don't say it. JP, what do you have for wagers?
All right. Well, today our best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. These are brought to you by The Grappler. Jays run line against the Rockies -1.5. Expect them to bounce back, have some hits, have some runs. Hitters Park, should be good. Astros money line against the Yankees. Rays money line against the Guardians. That you can get at +341 on FanDuel. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. The first inning means as much as the ninth when you bet baseball on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly, 18+ and physically located in Ontario to play.
JP, that was done excellently. As I continue on with my plaudits. Positive guy today.
Positive guy. Love it.
Yeah.
That's going to be that can't last.
No, well, there's only a minute and a half.
You're going to walk out of this studio and just berate both of us. JP's going to get an earful, and I'm going to hear it too.
No, I'm just, oddly enough, in a great mood for a Friday. And, that line you talked about, the Ticats Argos line, it's now 8. It was 8.5 yesterday. So,
line's coming down.
Let's see where we are on Monday. Maybe it's a touchdown.
Okay. Is there some sharp money coming in on the Ticats? What's going on?
Not for me, no.
Okay.
I'm smarter than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like him to cover. I mean, you're right. I do like your, the big smoke team comes in just giving their quarterback a outrageously expensive $1.8 million 3-year deal. Maybe the karma sets up for the underdogs to have their moment.
Could be. Ticats kicking, not the best. So we'll see what happens there. It's going to be a fun day, though. It's going to be a nice day.
Let's hope.
Sunblock will be out. And
yeah, it's supposed to be a good weekend in terms of we've been having some chilly days.
And Milton,
feeling a little too much like fall for my liking.
Yeah. Well, sadly, we're out of time. Thanks, Dave. We'll see you next week. And thanks to everybody else. Have a safe and good weekend.